you. I'm already crying and I haven't even started. Thank you so much, Victoria. What a blessing. So, like Victoria said, my name is Annabelle Fisher, and you may call me Annie if you choose. This afternoon, I am your guide across the most intrepid, the most scary, and the most dangerous 2-foot journey you could ever travel. And the rest of the time, I am an emotional freedom techniques practitioner, trainer, and business mentor. And the thing that I love the most about the work that I do is seeing beautiful people that I train go out into the world and make a difference. How many of you want to make a difference in the world? Thank you. But what does it really mean to make a difference? Well, sometimes we think it has to be massive and purposeful, like the work of Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King. But for me, making a difference is creating a subtle shift in the moment. And that shift takes place when we cross that most intrepid 2-foot journey. I have always wanted to make a difference, ever since I was little. But I used to think it had to be a lot of hard work, massive. And I know where that seed was planted. So let me take you back to when I was just a little girl. Picture me, 8 or 9 years old, pigtails, freckles, and rosy cheeks. And I had the thickest bottle-bottom glasses you have ever seen. But I didn't care, because I was an actress. And I was a singer, and I played musical instruments. And you know, even at that young age, I wrote poetry and music. Wow. I guess you could say that I lived life from my heart. And when I was 11, I was sent to a very prim and proper all-girls English school. We had to work hard, memorize facts, and pass a lot of exams. Did any of you go to a school like that one? Yeah. Chemistry and physics, maths. And I struggled because it was hard for me because I wasn't naturally academic. But I had my imagination. And guess what my favorite subject at school was? Daydreaming. My seat was at the back of the class, right next to the window. Perfect for daydreaming, right? And one day, I was dreaming that I was on the West End stage in London. And I was having so much fun. And then suddenly, wham! I spun round. And my headmaster had smacked me over the head with a hardback book. And the room had gone very quiet. And then he said this to me. Annabelle Fisher, you will never amount to anything. I was so ashamed. And I knew in that moment, there was no room for being in my heart in that place. So over the next few years, I stopped all the acting and the singing, and I went up into my head. And I started thinking up into the attic. Because I thought if what my headmaster said was true, then I would have to work harder than anybody else just so I could be something. And that's exactly what I did. And over the next 20 years, my life took many twists and turns. And then in 2004, I became an EFT practitioner. Wow, how did my life get so good? I worked hard and I loved what I did. Do any of you love the work that you do? Yes, it feels great, doesn't it? I could be deeply connected to my heart. And I could be creative, just like when I was a little girl. But in quiet times, I started to hear my headmaster's voice. And he was telling me I wasn't amounting to anything. And I thought about this. I started to overthink it, and I went back up into the attic. And this time, I stayed there. I started pushing myself. I worked 7 days a week. I was chained to my computer. I was in a workaholic overdrive. And the work that I had once loved with such a passion was starting to wear me down. And let me tell you, I judged myself for that. And I was filled with self-doubt. Here was I, counseling others in how to live a passionate life from their hearts on purpose. And I had lost touch with all of that. I was a fraud. And I was deeply ashamed of myself. And I spiraled into a dark depression. But I found my own personal therapist. And he took away all my pain. You may have seen him around. He's a tall, slender fellow. Green in color. And when you uncork him, pop, he takes away all your troubles. Dr. Cabernet Sauvignon. Cheers. And let me tell you, Cabernet and I, we developed a very intimate relationship over the course of time. I enjoyed his soothing manner. I wonder if you know of anyone doing something like that in their life. Because I paid heavy prices for that. All the overworking and the drinking. I lost good friends because I didn't make a space for them. So let's face it, why would they stick around? But there was one person who stuck around. My husband, Michael. And 17 years before, he had fallen in love with my heart. Now, he was married to an overthinking, analytical head. And I didn't even notice because I was on a mission to make a big difference in the world. And I judged him because I believed he wasn't making a big enough difference. And I wore him down. All his confidence and his self-esteem. And I had become just like my headmaster, critical and demeaning. until there was nothing left and we separated. Now, you may think that something like that would make me change. But you know, sometimes it's the most subtle things that create the biggest change in us and have the biggest impact. And in June of this year, I was speaking to one of my coaches, Belinda, and I don't know what she said, but whatever it was, in that moment, it took me out of my head and bam, right down into my heart again, finally. And I felt it so strongly. And it hit me that just by being me, I was already making the difference. All that overthinking, that overworking, that high flying, that hadn't made any difference, and certainly not a positive one. I knew I didn't want to live in the attic one moment longer. And in 2013, the Heart Math Institute reported that when we are in a heart space, we are 60 times more powerful than when we are operating from our mind. Wow. Have any of you ever been in that heart space? Oh, yes. I wanted to be somebody like you, connected to her head and her heart. You see, the most intrepid and dangerous 2-foot journey we will ever cross is the one from our head to our heart. And when I talked to Belinda that day, I crossed it. And let me tell you, it may have only been 2 feet, but it felt like a frickin' abyss. We must get out of our heads so we can make a difference in the world. There was no time to waste, and I moved at lightning speed. You see, I moved so fast, I had to do it in slow motion just so you could see it. Let me share with you just how much better my life became. I immediately cut down my schedule from 7 days working to 3 days. And I stopped taking on new clients. I looked at my schedule. Oh, I could breathe. And I created a morning ritual. So I'd grab a cup of coffee, I'd go out on the deck, and I'd feel the morning sun on my face. I started gardening, thrusting my hands in the soil, getting dirt under my nails. You see, when I'm gardening, there's no head involved. It's just hands and heart. And I started painting again. Now, back there, I had dabbled in painting, but I was so in my head and analytical. It was torture. This time, I threw the paint on the canvas, and I went abstract. And I used my fingers and a palette knife. I led the way, or my heart led the way for me. And because I was making a difference in my own life, my heart was softening. And I welcomed back someone into my life. Michael and I had been separated for a year. And we started dating again. And because I was more relaxed, he was more relaxed. We laughed our heads off. And we cried our hearts out. Yet despite all these wonderful things that were happening in my life at that time, I will admit to you that there was a heavy cloud looming overhead. Now, because I had cut my working schedule in half, my income plummeted. And I panicked. I was really frightened because for the first time, I wasn't able to pay my monthly bills. Have any of you ever had money worries? Oh, yes. I went back up into my head and I started thinking what I needed to do. And at that point, Nigel popped up. Nigel is my ego. And when you think of Nigel, think up somebody like Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales. So let me get my hand behind my back in preparation. And this is what he said. Annabelle, darling, you appear to be having way too much fun now, connecting to your head and your heart. It's time to work hard again. And for a moment, I listened to him, and I can't tell you how strong the pull was to go back over there. It would have been so easy to slip into that workaholic mode. But my heart kept pulling me back over here. And it was reminding me that to make a difference in the world, I had to start by making a difference in my own life. And I was reminded of a principle that my mentor, Dove Barron, had taught me. That failure is an important ingredient of my success, but quitting is not. And I refused to quit. And I chose to move through all that pull and push. Now, you may remember when I started, I told you that I always believed that making a difference had to be massive. Yet, in this place of different that I found myself, I wasn't worried about the level of difference that I was making. I didn't need to know in whose lives I was making a difference. I was centered in the knowing that just by being me, I was making the difference. And there were differences in my workshops and trainings. In the past, I'd wanted big numbers and I'd counted how many people were attending. Now, I created intimate relationships with my students. And I shared with them and opened my heart. And they reciprocated. And because I was loving the work that I was doing, I noticed that my self-value was increasing. And as my self-value increased, my income increased, and money started flowing into my life again. And of course, there were differences in my relationship with Michael. In the past, we'd stuff down our feelings. We were too frightened to share what was going on for us. But now, we openly communicated. Because we were more relaxed, we felt safe together. Because I had made a difference in my life, I was making a difference in his life and in our relationship. And of course, I went up into my head, but I was aware of it, and I pulled myself back down into my heart. Now, what on earth does all of this have to do with you fabulous people out here this evening? Well, you know how so many of us believe we must work really hard to make a difference in the world. Yeah. And you also probably know that a lot of those people overthink how they're going to make that difference. Yeah, of course, I'm not talking about anybody here this evening. And naturally, I wouldn't be talking about myself. The main problem is that we keep pushing ourselves to make that difference. And we feel like we are never doing enough to make a difference in the world. We just keep doing more and more, and we end up feeling that we're making less and less of a difference. we end up feeling like a fraud. Now, we all know that we can do 1,000 things, yet feel like we've made no difference whatsoever. Do you agree? Yeah. And you also, like me, know that sometimes it's the subtlest, the most simple thing that creates the biggest difference in a person's life. Now, what if we could combine all that knowing with a technique that you could apply in any situation? On your own at home, in front of people, over the phone, that you know would immediately, positively impact a person's life for the better. Just imagine this. You wake up on a Monday morning and your stomach is filled with dread. Have you been there? Oh, yes. There is a heavy pressure descending. You just want to pull the duvet back over your head. You don't know why you feel like this. But then you remember you attended the ultimate emotional freedom techniques workshop with and you immediately start tapping using a technique that is just so simple and elegant that within a few short minutes, you feel more energized, you're centered, you're lighter, and you jump out of bed because you can't wait to start your day, and you grab that list of priorities. Oh, there is so much to do. You want to make a difference, you just don't know where to start. And then you remember again that you attended the workshop, so you start tapping. And just within 5 minutes, you are breathing deeply. You feel focused. And you know exactly what you need to do. Partway through the day, you're checking off everything on that list. It feels great. And the telephone rings. It's your best friend. And she is struggling. She's having a hard time in her marriage, at work. She's totally overwhelmed. Now, in the past, you'd have grabbed Dr. Cabernet Sauvignon, jumped in the car, and rushed round to her house to rescue her. Not now. Now you remember you can make a difference in a whole new way. And you stay on the phone and you walk her through the EFT process. And within just 5 minutes, she's calm, confident, and clear. And there's joy in her voice as she exclaims, "I can't believe the difference you've made in my life in just 5 minutes." It's the end of the day, and you look at that to-do list, everything's done. And of course, there's always more you can add, but you won't push yourself. And you snuggle into your armchair, listen to your favorite music, and you sip a cup of chamomile tea. And you remember that it wouldn't have been this way in the past. In the past, you'd have been de-stressing with a glass of Cabernet or 3. What an amazing day. You've changed lives. You've made an impact. You have made a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. Now, this doesn't need to be in your imagination like a fantasy. This could be your reality as soon as the beginning of next year. Like I said when I started, I am an EFT trainer. And I was the first of only 5 authorized trainers here in Canada. And I facilitate the ultimate EFT experience workshop. And it starts in January. And during that workshop, you will learn a life-transforming technique that you can apply in any situation, offering you immediate relief from stress and overwhelm and anxiety, from conflict in relationships, and also relief from limiting beliefs that have held you back your whole life. During the workshop, you will be able to practice EFT in pairs, and you will gain confidence because you will be in a supportive and safe environment. And at the end of the workshop, you'll experience calm and confidence as you check off that to-do list every day. You'll be avoiding overthinking, overworking, and overwhelm, because you'll be getting out of your head back into your heart every moment. And you'll also experience deep, connected relationships. You'll be able to identify the root cause of challenges in your relationships, not destroy them like I did back there. And you will experience making a difference in the world, either subtly or massively, in your own life and in the lives of others. Wow. So my question to you is, how important is it to you to wake up every morning knowing that you have a system in place that will immediately get you out of your head and back into your heart? What would it be worth to you to have in place a technique that is so simple, so easy, that you can apply in any situation, that you know without the shadow of a doubt will make a difference in the world? So I trust that I have awakened something within you this afternoon. And when I get off the stage, we have a break, and I will meet you at the back of the room, because I can show you techniques that will enable you to take that 2-foot journey. Thank you. I am Annabelle Fisher.